Hello and good night. Welcome to another bedtime story. This story is meant to help you sleep or to relax your mind. Try and find a comfortable place, such as your bed or a soft chair. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes now. Try and let go of the day as we begin our tale. Tonight's story is The Princess and the Goblin. Once upon a time, in a mountainous kingdom, there lived a young princess named Irene. She was a curious and bright child with golden curls and eyes that seemed to sparkle with curiosity. She lived in a grand but lonely castle nestled in the foothills of a great mountain. Her father, the king, was a noble and wise ruler, but he was often away tending to affairs of state. For her safety, Irene was kept away from the bustling cities and confined to the castle, surrounded by caretakers and maids who ensured that her every need was met. The castle, however, was not as serene as it seemed. Beneath the mountain lay a labyrinth of tunnels and caverns where goblins dwelled. These creatures were grotesque and cunning, with bulbous noses, twisted limbs, and a hatred for sunlight. They despised humans, blaming them for their exile into the darkness of the earth. Over time, they had become bitter and vengeful, plotting schemes to cause trouble for the people of the kingdom. The castle guards were aware of the goblins, but believed them to be little more than a nuisance. They underestimated their cunning and malice. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Irene sat in her nursery, listening to her nurse, Luti, tell stories. Irene loved the tales of brave knights and wise queens, but she often wondered about the world beyond the castle walls. That night, as she gazed out her window at the silver moonlight illuminating the rugged peaks, she felt a deep longing to explore. Unbeknownst to her, the goblins were hatching a sinister plan. They had grown tired of living underground and desired revenge against the humans who lived above them. Their king, a crafty and cruel figure, had decided to kidnap Princess Irene and force her to marry his son, a brutish goblin prince. In doing so, they hoped to claim the mountain and its treasures as their own. The goblins were not the only ones stirring that night. Irene's great-great-grandmother, a mysterious and magical figure, watched over her from a hidden chamber high in the castle. This ancient woman, who appeared young and radiant despite her centuries of age, was known only to a select few. She possessed knowledge and powers beyond imagination and had taken a special interest in Irene, sensing that the princess was destined for greatness. One day, while exploring the castle, Irene discovered a spiral staircase she had never noticed before. Her curiosity piqued. She climbed the stairs, winding higher and higher until she reached a small, sunlit room. There, seated by a spinning wheel, was her great-great-grandmother. The old woman greeted her warmly and introduced herself. Irene was enchanted by her beauty and wisdom, and she began to visit her often. During one of these visits, her great-great-grandmother gave her a magical gift, a fine thread spun from her wheel, so light and strong that it was nearly invisible. She placed it in a ring and told Irene, "If you are ever in danger, follow this thread and it will lead you to safety." Meanwhile, in a nearby village, a miner's son named Curdy worked diligently alongside his father. Curdy was a clever and brave boy, well liked by everyone in the village. He often ventured into the mines, where he had learned to recognize the goblin's handiwork. Unlike most, Curdy understood the goblin's ways and had devised clever tricks to thwart them. He knew their weaknesses. They feared sunlight, and their soft, unshod feet were vulnerable to being stepped on. Most importantly, they could not bear singing, as music was repellent to them. One evening, while working late in the mines, Curdy overheard a group of goblins discussing their plan to kidnap Princess Irene. Alarmed, he decided to warn the castle. He made his way through the dark tunnels, singing loudly to keep the goblins at bay. When he reached the castle gates, the guards were skeptical of his story, but Curdy's earnestness convinced them to inform the castle steward. Back in the castle, Irene's life took an unexpected turn. One night, she awoke to a strange noise outside her window. The goblins had begun their plan, and their stealthy movements in the shadows sent shivers down her spine. Remembering her great-great-grandmother's words, she followed the magical thread. It led her out of her room, through the castle, and into the night. Though frightened, Irene felt a sense of calm, trusting the thread to guide her. The thread led her to Curdy, who had been keeping watch near the castle. Surprised to see the princess, he quickly realized that the goblins were closer than he had thought. Together, they devised a plan to stop the goblins. Irene's bravery impressed Curdy, and he vowed to protect her. The goblins, meanwhile, had tunneled their way into the castle's lower levels. They believed their plan was foolproof, but they had underestimated the resourcefulness of Irene and Curdy. Using the magical thread, Irene led Curdy through the labyrinthine passages of the castle, where they discovered the goblin's entry point. With Curdy's knowledge of the goblin's weaknesses, they devised traps and barriers to stop their advance. When the goblins finally emerged, they were met with fierce resistance. Curdy's clever tactics and Irene's bravery turned the tide of the battle. They used sunlight, music, and quick thinking to drive the goblins back into their tunnels. The Goblin King, realizing his plan had failed, retreated with his army, vowing revenge. In the aftermath, the king returned to the castle and learned of his daughter's courage. He was deeply proud of her and grateful to Curdy for his bravery. Irene introduced her father to her great-great-grandmother, who had guided her throughout the ordeal. Though the king could not see the old woman, he trusted Irene's words and understood that a higher power had been watching over them. Curdie was hailed as a hero and offered a place in the castle. But he chose to return to his village, where he continued to work in the mines. He and Irene remained close friends, however, bound by the extraordinary adventure they had shared. As for the goblins, they retreated deeper into the mountains, their power diminished. They never again dared to challenge the humans, and peace returned to the kingdom. Irene grew into a wise and compassionate ruler, inspired by the lessons of her great-great-grandmother and the courage of her friend Curdie. And so, the story of the Princess and the Goblin became a legend, a tale of bravery, friendship, and the triumph of light over darkness, passed down through generations as a reminder of the power of trust and courage. And Princess Irene and Curdie lived happily ever after. The end. Thank you for listening to this bedtime story. I hope you enjoyed the tale tonight. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more audiobooks and tales to come. Until next time.